Okay, so good afternoon, students. We just wait for Gopinath sir to come. Gopinath sir will come and he will do his part. His part is basically physical chemistry. So as we wait for him to come, we can just try to do something. What something could be. Yeah, NK sir is absent today too. He will take solutions. Solutions. He will take solutions. He will take solutions. Second chapter. First chapter, solid state, is removed from syllabus. Two years back. So 2 years back, they removed solid state from the syllabus. So now our first chapter will be solutions. So we will work with solutions. So I hope all of you know what solution is. Solution is basically a homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous homogeneous mixture of a solute plus solvent. So basically there are two components in a solution. A homogeneous mixture of that is what is called as a solution. The solvent is basically that species which is in larger quantity. So that species which is in larger quantity is called the solvent. That species which is in smaller quantity is called the, or lesser quantity is called the solute. Okay, solute plus solvent is equal to solution. In your lower classes you would have learned, can you try to make a guess as to why are solutions formed? Why are solutions formed? Or how are solutions formed? Why are solutions formed? How are solutions formed? Okay, so if sir is there here, Gopinath sir, can you just raise your hands?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, he's not able to raise his hand, but I found him out. Shall I unmute him?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
You tell him he can take class for as much time as he wants, okay?
Okay.
Hello, sir.
He's
Yeah. Please take over.
Okay, sir.
Hello, Gopi, sir.
Sir, please share the screen, sir.
Yeah, you can share the screen. I'll be there online. If you need any help, you can call me. That time
I'm getting, sir, you cannot start screen share while the others participating sharing.
Oh,
If you allow me.
I think Murli sir has to stop screen sharing. Then only you can do that. Yeah, now you can share.
Yes, sir. Yes, solutions. All these things here. When come to, I will just give the brief solutions before I will have a talk on a brief talk on components and all those things. See what now just now what the Murli sir used what the solution, right? So when come to the so told you the homogeneous mixture of and now so that is two, one is solute, one is solvent. So when come to the what binary solution.
Hello,
So
hello,
in this,
hello, sir.
hello sir, can you
Yeah,
hear me, sir?
screen is lagging actually. Students are also messaging. Screen is lagging and your voice is also lagging.
Means hello.
Yes, yes, yes. Tell me, sir.
Uh,
Yeah, so good afternoon, students, once again. So let us do some work. So sir was trying to tell you about binary solutions. So basically you have in your syllabus only binary solutions. So what do binary solutions mean? So binary solution is basically a mixture of two compounds. So one solute and one solvent. So you can have binary, tertiary, and you can have as many different species as possible in a solution. But in your syllabus, you have only binary solutions. So binary solutions are basically a solution where there is one solute and there is one solvent. Okay, so such a system is called a binary solution. Now I explained to you a solute is the species which is in low quantity, and then a solvent is a species which is in higher quantity. So the concentration of the solvent is higher than the concentration of the solute. Now, before we move ahead, before we look at types of solutions, we can just discuss for a few minutes as to why are solutions formed. Yeah, why are solutions formed? So how does it work? So basically it is nothing but the solution. It's a formation of a solution. So you have a solute and a solute kind of interacts with the solvent. There are different types of interactions, okay, which are possible between the solute and the solvent. Say for example, when you take sugar and dissolve in water, basically the sugar breaks into smaller and smaller particles, and then it gets dispersed. It gets dispersed within the intermolecular spaces of water. Yeah, so sugar, when you keep dissolving sugar, it breaks down into smaller and smaller and smaller particles. And once the particles become smaller, they just go and get into the intermolecular spaces of water. So this is one kind of a solution. The another kind of a solution is NaCl. Suppose you take NaCl and then again you add it to water. What happens is NaCl, being a electrovalent compound, it becomes Na aqueous plus Cl aqueous. So here there is an interaction between the solvent and the solute. Yeah, so there is an interaction between the solvent and the solute. So what happens is the solvent, in this case water, is polar. By nature it is polar. So because of this polarity, what happens is this is the negative charge and here you have the positive charges, right? So when it comes along with the sodium chloride, there is some kind of a bond formed here. Similarly, there is some kind of a bond formed between the H plus and the Cl minus. So as a result, this bond here becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, and then ultimately it breaks. So that's what we call as the dielectric constant of water. So because water has a high dielectric constant, this bond here breaks and it becomes a sodium plus aqueous and it becomes chlorine minus aqueous. So here there is some kind of an interaction between the solvent and the solute. As a consequence of it, the solute breaks down, and the solute breaks down, and then it gets dispersed in the solvent. Okay, So this is another reason for solubility. Yeah, so if you can make some notes, we can move on. Yeah, obviously you should take notes. In JEE, I don't know whether solid state is there or not. I have no clue. Yeah, the name of this chapter is solutions. You don't have solid state in your syllabus. Basically, I also was surprised when I looked at the list. I looked at solid state was also there is deleted portion in solid state also. But last year that whole chapter has been removed. In fact, in the latest books, the chapter itself is not there. So can we have only one solvent in all solutions? No, you cannot have. You cannot have one. Any solution can be formed by anything. So our job is to analyze different types of solutions. Right now we are talking about water. Water is called the universal solvent. But we will reach there, don't worry. Right now we are just seeing, okay, there is some kind of an interaction between a solute and the solvent. That kind of interaction is because of the electrovalent compound and the dielectric constant. Okay, so this is another reason why there is solubility. Now, the third reason why there is solubility is because of a reaction between species. Say, for example, if you take SO3, SO3 plus H2O gives H2SO4. Okay, SO3 plus H2O gives you H2SO4. Yeah, and in this case, you can say that this is a compound, but there is a clear distinction between a solution and a compound. Solution and a compound. In case of a solution, the individual, the solute and the solvent can be separated by easy physical means or simple physical means. So in this case, if you just take H2SO4 and then you just heat it, it will again break off into SO3 and H2O. While in the case of a compound, you can't separate the two by simple physical means. You need to have, you need to make a complex procedure to get back the individual solvent and the solute. But in case of a solution, you can easily separate them. So now SO3 dissolves in H2O to form H2SO4, or if you take SO3 also dissolves in H2SO4 to form H2S2O7. This is what is known as oleum. This is used as a dehydrating agent. So here the SO3 can be removed very easily from this. Okay, so even here by heating it strongly, the SO3 will go out. Yeah, again if you mix, again it will combine. So these are examples: carbon dioxide plus water. This is your soda water. So soda water, so the moment you take it out, there is a fizz and carbon dioxide escapes. So this is again, it forms H2CO3. So first case we saw, it is because of the solute getting interspersed in the intermolecular space. In the second case, it was because of some kind of an interaction between the molecules. In the third case, it is because of a reaction between the solute and the solvent. Okay, so these are three possible reasons why there could be a solution formed. Now, there are many differences between solutions and compounds. One important difference is basically the fact that you can separate the two species. A second important thing is that in case of a solution, they don't necessarily need to mix in fixed whole number ratio. While in the case of compound formation, it needs to be in a fixed whole number ratio. So that is why we are referring to some of these as solutions, because here the amount of SO3 that could be added to H2O is very high. Say for example, if you have chlorine plus H2O gives HCl plus HClO. So here, lot of chlorine. Chlorine is almost soluble to an extent of 33%. Yeah. Similarly, SO3 is also possible, is soluble to quite a high percent. Of course, carbon dioxide is not soluble to a very high percent, but whether you add 2%, 3%, 4%, the end result is the same. Okay, so we have referred to all these as solutions and say that SO3 is soluble in H2O, SO3 is soluble in H2SO4, CO2 is soluble in H2O, but not to a great extent, in which case we say it is sparingly soluble. Please write notes. Sparingly soluble. Okay, so all those cases where these are all subjective terms. What is sparingly? What do you mean by sparingly? 2% is sparing, or 3% is sparing, or 4% is sparing. There is no clear demarcation. So if the solubility is not high, we say it is sparingly soluble. Chlorine is highly soluble in water. This is highly soluble. This is also highly soluble. Okay. Now in this chapter, we want to avoid these two situations. Okay, in this chapter on solutions, we want to avoid these two situations. It's very tough to avoid. We will see that, because there will always be an interaction between the solute and the solvent. But we want to mostly analyze this kind of a solution. So this kind of a solution, what happens is basically there is no interaction between the solute molecules and the solvent molecules, but the solute molecules just break down and go and sit in the intermolecular spaces of the solvent molecule. Yeah, so we will mostly be talking about those solutions where the interaction between solute particles and solvent particles is minimal. Okay, so we are trying to identify or understand those properties of a solution where there is no interaction, because the moment there is an interaction, each interaction becomes separate, so we can't deal with it. So we are talking about solutions in general where there is no interaction between the solute particles and solvent particles. Okay. Yeah. Typically, this happens in those situations where the bonding between atoms or elements in solute and solvent are similar. Okay, it generally happens in those situations where the bonding between the elements in solute and solvent are similar. That is why there is a fundamental rule which says like dissolves like. That is why there is a fundamental rule which says like dissolves like. What do you mean by like dissolves like? Covalent compounds dissolve covalent solutes. Electrovalent compounds dissolve electrovalent solutes. But water is called a universal solvent because it can dissolve many electrovalent solutes and many covalent solutes. Sugar is an example of a covalent solute. So sugar dissolves in water. Okay, so that is because sugar is covalent, water is also covalent. Then HCl is electrovalent, HCl dissolves in water. That is because water is polar, HCl is also polar. So polar, they are like. So they will dissolve. Water also has some electrovalent character. As a consequence, electrovalent salts also dissolve in water. Because water dissolves both covalent, polar and electrovalent compounds, water is called a universal solvent. Okay. So that's a 2-mark question for you. Why is water called a universal solvent? Here was the answer. So if you can make some notes, I will look at your queries and answer. Yes, please write notes. can we have only one solution in all solutions? No, you can't, because yeah. Why is water not an ionic compound? I can't answer that, Anirudh. Water is covalent. There is a sharing of electrons between hydrogen and oxygen. So water is not a covalent, electrovalent compound. Water is called a universal solvent because it dissolves both electrovalent species and covalent species. That is why it is called a universal solvent. Yeah, okay. So if you all are understanding, you can make some notes first. Can we make some notes here? So to give you examples of solutions, carbon disulfide, CS2, and carbon tetrachloride. So this dissolves here. This dissolves here. Yeah. Then petrol and diesel, they will dissolve. Water and ethanol, they will dissolve. Water, NaCl, will dissolve. Yeah. So these are all examples of solutions being formed. Or I'm giving you examples of like dissolves like. This is what? This is covalent bonding, no polarity. Covalent bonding, no polarity. These two are hydrocarbons. They'll dissolve in each other. This H2O NaCl, because this is electrovalent and this is slight electrovalent character. This is covalent, polar, covalent, polar. So these different reasons why each one of them dissolves in the other. Yeah. Sir, it is known to us that water has two components, solute and solvent. What if the solute is so small that it is almost, can solvent alone make a solution? Yeah. You have parts per million, 1 part in a million. Okay, so parts per million. So 1 part in a million is also a solution. In a million means what? You have 10 power 6. So in 10 power 6, if you have 1 part, even that is a solution. Okay. So yeah, so let's move on. So you have basically 3 different types of matter. You have gas, you have liquid, and you have solid. Yeah, so you can have solutes of 3 kinds. You have solvents also of 3 kinds. You have gas, liquid, solid. So you can take gas, mix in gas, you can take gas, mix in liquid, you can take gas, mix in solid. So you get 3 types of solutions here. So you have gas in gas, gas in gas. So air is an example of a gas in gas solution. Then you can have liquid in gas, liquid in gas, liquid in gas, liquid in gas. Example of liquid in gas, chloroform is a liquid, chloroform dissolves. There are many examples. Dew is an example of liquid in gas. Yeah, so many times we say that especially in cold wintry days, you have those you have the it's not called dew, it's called the mist, fog which is forming. Yeah, okay, fog is different, so let me not talk about fog. But on cold wintry days, you have, yeah, it's called fog only, you have fog. Okay, so when you have fog, you have liquid and there is air, so that is liquid in gas. Another example, chloroform is a liquid which can be mixed with nitrogen, so you have liquid in gas. Then okay, so I am talking about this, okay, so I'm talking about these 3 arrows. Then you have solid in gas, smog, smoke is nothing but carbon particles. Smoke is nothing but carbon particles. Carbon particles get into NH4Cl in air, ammonium chloride, NH4Cl in air, then camphor in air. So all these are examples of solid in air, solid in gas. Then you have, when I say solid in gas, solid is the lesser quantity, gas is the higher quantity. Okay, now we can go with solutions of liquids. So now I can have liquid in gas. So I can take a liquid. Sorry, I have done these three arrows that I have done. Now I have to take a gas in liquid, liquid in liquid, solid in liquid. So this is three types here. Then I have gas in liquid, liquid in liquid, solid in liquid. These I'm sure you'll understand. Air is dissolved in water. Liquid and liquid, take two, diesel, petrol, petrol plus diesel. Solid in liquid, NaCl, take NaCl, dissolve it in water, or sugar, take sugar, dissolve it in water. So here you get solid in liquid. So these are another three types of solutions. Similarly, you have gas in solid, gas in solid. Gas in solid, we have solid in gas we have already done. Now I'm talking about gas in solid. Then you have liquid in solid, then you have solid in solid. All your alloys are solutions of solid in solids. Copper dissolves in gold, copper, zinc dissolves in copper, lead. Then liquid in solid, all amalgams. Amalgam means sodium dissolves in mercury. Okay, so mercury is a liquid. You take mercury and you add it to sodium, so they will dissolve. So here you have a amalgam. So this is what is called as an amalgam. Whenever you dissolve something in mercury, you call it an amalgam. So here if you have less of mercury and more of sodium, it becomes a liquid in a solid. Then you have gas in solid. So gas in solid, there are a lot of examples of gas in solid. Before I move there, have you ever wondered, a question for you, have you ever wondered that in this equation N2 plus H2 forms 2NH3, 2NH3, why is nickel or palladium or platinum used as a catalyst? Why is this used as a catalyst? In all reactions of hydrogen, either nickel or palladium or platinum or molybdenum is used as a catalyst. So why do we use these elements as a catalyst in cases of reactions of hydrogen? Hydrogen gas and oxygen gas combine to form water. No, they don't combine to form water. Hydrogen gas and oxygen gas combine, they won't combine unless you put a glowing splinter or unless you heat them up or you provide them with some energy, it won't combine. Okay. Can carbonated drinks be an example for liquid to gas solutions? Not liquid to gas, gas to liquid. There is less of gas and more of liquid. Okay, so to increase the surface area for reaction, nickel withstands strong conditions to provide more surface area. That is to speed up the reaction. They stick to the surface of the reactants. No, you are partially correct. Meaning you have heard of it, but you didn't try to find out what is the exact reason for that. So the reason for that is this, that hydrogen occludes, OCCLUDES, occludes to the surface of these metals. These metals. So what happens is molecular hydrogen breaks and it becomes atomic hydrogen, and this atomic hydrogen goes and sits in between atoms of metal. Okay, now this hydrogen is, this is what we say that gas is dissolving in a solid. Gas is dissolving in a solid. So to give you an example of a gas being dissolved in a solid, I can give you an example of hydrogen dissolving in palladium, hydrogen dissolving in platinum. The scientific name for that is called occlusion. OCCLUSION, occlusion. So occlusion is a phenomenon by which not just hydrogen, there are a few other gases also which go and sit in the intermolecular spaces of certain metals, on the surface of the metals, and they sit as atomic hydrogen. So when hydrogen has to react, it is not the molecule which reacts, it's the atom which reacts. So the moment you put the nickel or any of these, molecular hydrogen gets converted to atomic hydrogen. So that much of amount of energy requirement decreases. So when the energy requirement decreases, what happens is the rate of reaction increases. So these elements increase the rate of reaction by converting molecular hydrogen to atomic hydrogen. Okay. Yeah, interstitial hydrides, you are right. H2 stick to catalyst. Hey guys, you focus now. We will think about the physics class. Don't worry. I seem to be liking this job now for chemistry teacher more. So please don't spoil that joy that I am having. So you can spoil the joy. It's like, you know, going for a nice movie and then asking when will the next movie release. So it just tries to say that that movie is boring. So let me have the pleasure of enjoying this for some time. Yeah. Okay, so if you are able to understand this, my favorite subject ever was chemistry. I got a centum in my JEE exam in chemistry. I mean, not a centum, but I got above 90%. Okay, let's move. Let's not talk. So the rate of the reaction. So basically, atomic hydrogen increases the rate of the reaction. So those are all examples of solutions of one type, solutions of solutions of one different species of solids and liquids and so on. Okay, so some of you were pointing out, does occlusion need any external factors? No, it doesn't need any external factor. Yeah, occlusion doesn't need any external factor. It's basically a surface phenomenon. It happens between many elements and hydrogen and with other gases also. For example, charcoal. The reason in most gas masks you have charcoal. So charcoal has again lot of intermolecular spaces and it has the property to absorb gas. So charcoal is another example where there is a gas in a solid kind of a solution. Okay, so in your exam they will ask you to give examples of different kinds of solutions. So you should be able to answer some of these. Okay, so depending on whatever we have just now discussed. Okay, so if you understand this, the next thing that we have to do is we have to learn how to represent a solution or how to represent the strength of a solution. So there are different ways in which the strength of a solution can be represented. One way is I can talk about it in terms of mole fraction. I can talk about it in terms of molarity. I can talk about it in terms of normality. We will learn a new thing called molality. And in addition to this, you have all those percentage measures. That is weight on weight measure percent, weight on volume percent, and then not last but not least is the ppm. ppm stands for parts per million. So when you install a water purifier, an RO based water purifier at home, that guy will come and first check what is the ppm of the water. So when he checks the ppm, he tries to find out, in case of dissolved solids, how many dissolved solids are there per million. So if there are 350 above, we say that water is not potable. You cannot drink that water by any other purification method other than reverse osmosis. Now, when it is less than 100, then you say that that water is potable. When I was a child, we never had all these RO machines. We used to just open the tap and drink the water. Okay, but now the pollution is so high that you can't do that. You do that and then you will fall in. So pollution has come because of both bacterial pollution and because of mineral and metal pollution. So these days we have to reverse osmosis water, and especially the water in Trichy is hard water. So what do you mean by hard water? Basically, there is too much of calcium carbonate dissolved in it, and these compounds basically form the stones in the body doesn't know how to excrete these. Yeah, so food the body knows how to excrete, but these compounds which are not regular food stuff, the body doesn't know how to excrete, so they'll go and sit in different parts of the body. So we have to be careful. So that is why we are trying to use reverse osmosis concepts. Anyway, so that is parts per million. So we will try to learn in this particular order. If you can make some notes, we will move on. Yeah, you have learned all these except for molality. You have no, not all gases occlude. Only certain gases occlude on certain surfaces. So hydrogen occludes on nickel and palladium. Air occludes with some other gases. We'll have to check and find out. They never had the need to do it, so they didn't do it. They know that carbon monoxide occludes to charcoal. Then they know that sulfur compounds occlude to charcoal. So they try to find out about all those things. So when you have those gas masks, so they have all these kinds of compounds in it. So another big problem is phosphine. So PH3. PH3 is a pretty poisonous gas. So when you want to have a gas mask, the gas mask should protect you from all these types of gases. So they take care of, they keep certain compounds in that gas mask, so that when the air goes through that, all those particles will get absorbed and you will get pure air to breathe. Sir, as a kid, I heard from people that converting seawater into drinking water costs a lot. What do you think? It costs so much? No, it doesn't cost. It doesn't cost much. It all depends. The whole of Gulf is surviving only on desalinated water. Desalinated water means they are trying to make seawater into potable water. The problem in India is they can do that. They are just not doing that. So if you can get your salt also, and then you can get water also. So, but now slowly I think they are doing it. The problem is not about the cost. You think sending water by petrol in a truck is cheaper? No, the problem is there are vested interests. So because of these vested interests, they are not doing it. If you look at most Western countries, you look at all the Gulf countries are surviving only on desalinated water. So if you take hard water and desalinate it, you will get soft water. Soft water can be used for anything and everything. Not only here, even in US they use desalinated water. Whole of South Africa, they have these desalination plants. So these are they are not very expensive. If you look at, a truck going to one place and then carrying the water and then going and giving it to places, these are much cheaper. Just that I feel there are vested interests. Anyway, that's not our job. So let's not get deviated. Isn't solid state connected to any other lesson? No, it's not. Okay, so let's start working on each of those methods. So first, let's look at mole fraction. So a quick revision for you. Mole fraction is equal to number of moles of solute divided by total number of moles. Okay, so I hope you are able to understand that. So now can we just write down some small questions and then work on it? Yeah. So first, here 74 grams of calcium hydroxide is dissolved completely in, let me say, 540 grams of water. What is the mole fraction of calcium hydroxide? In your exam, they won't write you the formulas. You will have to know that calcium hydroxide is CaOH2. Yeah, 74 grams of calcium hydroxide is completely dissolved in 540 grams of H2O. What is the mole fraction of calcium hydroxide? Sir, if helium is used, if He is used as fuel, then will water be released? He means what? Yeah, fine, good. Others, please work. He, if you're trying to talk about hydrogen, you're talking H2, yeah. If H2 is used as a fuel, it will be released. Fuel is a combustion. Every fuel that we have is a combustion reaction. Combustion reaction is a combination with oxygen. So it is H2 plus oxygen gives you 2H2O. So this is a combustion reaction. But by mere mixing of H2 and O2, I won't get H2O. Okay, mere mixing of H2 and O2, I won't get H2O. But yeah, if I ignite it and if I provide some kind of a spark to it, I will definitely get H2O and nothing else. Yeah. Yes. So you guys found out the answer for that quite quickly. It is 1 by 31. So how do you go ahead with it? So the number of moles of hydroxide was 1. I said 540 grams of water. So that is 30 moles plus 1. So it becomes 1 by 31. So it is as simple as that. So this gives me the mole fraction of a particular solute. So since we are talking only about binary solutes, for us, number of moles of A divided by number of moles of A plus number of moles of B. This will be the mole fraction of A. Understand that 1 minus mole fraction of A will be mole fraction of B, because we are talking about binary solutions. Okay, good, great. So if you all have done it, so now let's move on. Let's look at few other questions. So here is the next thing. So first we did mole fraction. Mole fraction, you have already learned that in your lower classes. Still, there are few more questions that I can give. Let me just give. Here, calculate the mole fraction of benzene in solution containing 30% by mass of carbon tetrachloride. Okay, calculate calculate the mole fraction of benzene in a solution containing 30% by mass. 30% by mass means totally if there are 100 grams, 30 grams is carbon tetrachloride, 70 grams is benzene. Okay, so now you can convert this into moles, you can convert this into moles and find out the mole fraction. Calculate the mole fraction of benzene in a solution containing 30% by mass. 30% by mass means if you totally take 100 grams, in that 100 grams, 30 grams is carbon tetrachloride and 70 grams will be the solute, the solvent. Yeah, can we please find out? Okay. Yeah, okay, I got your answer, Naveen. So what do we have? We have 30 grams of carbon tetrachloride. So what is the molar mass of carbon tetrachloride? Carbon is like 12, 4 chlorines. So 4 chlorines means 4 into 35.5. So 4 into 35.5, this is 71, 71 plus 71. 71 plus 71 is like 142. So this will be 154. C6H6, 72, 72 plus 6, 78. So you have 78 by 70 by 78 moles of benzene. Then you have 30 by 154 moles of carbon tetrachloride. And then you have 30 by 154 moles of carbon tetrachloride. So you have to just find out this ratio. So this ratio will not give you 48%, it will give you much less than that. So 30 by 54 is approximately 1 by 5, that is 20%. Okay, so 0.2 in the numerator divided by, this will be some 0.9 plus 0.2. So that is 0.2 by 1.1. So 0.2 by 1.1 will give me the correct answer. So how are you guys finding out this 0.45? Oh, I think you did 30 by 40, 30 by 70. Yeah, you have to find out the mole fraction of each. It is given to you that it is 30% by mass. 30% by mass means in 100 grams, there is 30 grams of carbon tetrachloride and there is 70 grams of benzene. So 70 grams of benzene means 70 divided by molar mass. Molar mass C6H6. Unless my formulas are wrong, then let me know. C6H6. C6H6 is 12 into 6 is 72. 72 plus 6 is 78. So you have 70 by 78 plus 30 by 154. Carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride is CCl4. So chlorine is 35.5. So 4 into 35.5. So that gives me the number of moles. So the number of moles of carbon tetrachloride is 30 by 154 divided by 70 by 78 plus 30 by 154. So when I simplify that, I'll get 0.2 by 1.1. Yeah, let me know what are the questions. Sir, why have you calculated CCl4 here? Shouldn't we take benzene as solute? Okay, mole fraction. Mole fraction is what? So that is why we should not just get confused. Mole fraction is equal to moles of solute divided by moles of solvent plus moles of solute. Mole fraction. So that means you are asking for a fraction. Fraction of what? Number of moles of solute divided by total number of moles. So number of moles of solute divided by total number of moles. Total number of moles includes both moles of solute and moles of solvent. Hey, 2 by 11 cannot be 0.45. Anirudh is reading too much. Yeah, so is this understood? Multiplied by 2 means, yeah. Okay, I don't want to answer. I just want to know whether you guys understand or not. It is said calculate mole fraction of, in the question, mole fraction of benzene. Is I asked you for the mole fraction of benzene? Okay, let me check. Okay, if I asked you for the mole fraction of benzene, even then your answer is wrong. So it should be 1 minus that much. Yeah, mole fraction. It seems I asked you for the mole fraction of benzene. So for the mole fraction of benzene, what you have to do is you have to calculate. So you got mole fraction of carbon tetrachloride is 1818. So 1 minus 0.1818. So that will become 0.82. So 0.82 will be the mole fraction of benzene. Okay. Okay, fine. Here is another question. Benzene and toluene are mixed in 1:1 mass ratio. What is the mole fraction? What is the mole fraction of the solution? So that is, I want to know what is how many moles of solute as a fraction. So benzene and toluene are mixed in the ratio 1:1. So better is, let me be clear, mole fraction of toluene. Benzene and toluene are mixed in 1:1 mass ratio. What is the mole fraction of toluene in the solution? So in this, what am I telling you? I am telling you that the mass ratio is 1:1. That means if there is 50 grams of benzene, there is 50 grams of toluene. Okay, now what is toluene? Toluene is C6H5CH3. What is benzene? C6H6. So here it is 78, here it is 72 plus 5 plus 12 plus 3. So how much is that? This is 92. Okay, so if you understand this, now it becomes very simple. So I have 50 by 92 divided by 50 by 78 plus 50 by 92. So you can simplify this and work on it. So 90% of you will be trying to do these calculations. You don't have to do these calculations. All the 50s can be cancelled off. So it is 1 by 92 into 78 divided by 92 plus 78. So 92 plus 78 is like 170. These two can get cancelled and the answer is 78 by 170. So 78 by 170, I can find out 17 into 5 is 85. So this will become 0.45. So the answer is 617 into 4. 17 into 4 is 68. So you have 9. So yeah, so very close to 0.45. So the answer is 0.45. Do you understand? Mole fraction. Mole fraction refers to the number of moles of solute or of any one species divided by total number of moles. So 50 by 78 gives you the number of moles of C6H6. 50 by 92 gives you the number of moles of C6H5CH3. So I find out the total number of moles and then I divide it by number of moles of toluene is asked. So that is 50 by 92. Instead of working out on each one of them, I cancel up the 50s, then take the LCM and then work. So I got 78 by 170. Okay. How did you find toluene in the solute here? Is the solute here? No, I didn't find toluene is the solute, but I did, but it is not required. I did because I know toluene was in lesser quantity than solvent. The definition, how do you distinguish between solute and solvent? Solvent is always that species which is in greater quantity. Solute is always that species which is in lesser quantity. So I know the molar mass of toluene is more, so I guess the number of moles of toluene is less. So I asked you to find out the mole fraction of toluene. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. So I hope we are able to understand what it is. Okay. So if you understand, then I will do one more and then we will stop for the day. Actually, I don't mind continuing, but I don't know how many of you are there itself. I haven't seen. Yeah. So already I've seen some 10 guys have dropped out. Okay. So this is how you can work on this. So this is mole fraction. Do you see that the mole fraction is independent of volume? Do you see that mole fraction is independent of volume? So if mole fraction is independent of volume, if mole fraction is independent of volume, do you think it will be affected by temperature? Suppose I tell you that the mole fraction of a solution is some A. Okay, if you increase the temperature, will the mole fraction change? Yeah, it won't change. Why will it not change? Because there is no change in volume. When you increase the temperature, volume of a substance changes. When volume of a substance changes, if there is concentration with respect to volume, say what is molarity? Molarity is the concentration, is the number of moles of a substance per liter of solution. Okay, so this liter of solution, liter is temperature dependent. So as you increase temperature, volume increases. As you increase temperature, molarity decreases. So as temperature increases, molarity decreases. Similarly, normality decreases, but mole fraction remains the same. So there are quite a few units of concentration which are independent of temperature. Quite a few which are dependent on temperature. We want units which are both independent of temperature. Of course, we won't want units which are dependent on temperature, but those are easy. In some cases, it doesn't matter. So those are easy. So we usually work with them. But there are good number of units of concentration which are independent of temperature. One such thing is mole fraction. Okay. So if you understand mole fraction, then we will move on and learn another thing called molality. Molality. Molality refers to the number of moles of solute in 1000 grams of the solvent. Number of moles of solute in 1000 grams of the solvent. Now that is again here, this is number of moles of solute in 1000 grams of solvent. So both are again independent of volume. Now because they are independent of volume, molality is also independent of temperature. It is independent of temperature. So it is the number of moles of solute in 1000 grams of the solvent. Okay, now once we understand this, we will take up a small example and then we will work it out. Yeah, so here it is, the question. 2.5 grams of ethanoic acid that is CH3COOH is dissolved in 75 grams of benzene. What is its molality? Molarity is there, molality is there, normality is there. So we are now talking about molality. Molality is the moles of solute in 1000 grams of solvent. So first I need to find out moles of solute. So ethanoic acid, so 12 plus 12, 24 plus 2 oxygens, 32 plus 4 hydrogens, 4. So 24 plus 32, this is how much? 56. 56 plus 4 is how much? 60. Yeah, so 60 is the molar mass. Now how many moles? We have 2.5 divided by 60. So 2.5 divided by 60, this many moles is there in how much? In 75 grams. So in 1000 grams, how many moles is there? Into 1000. So this is the molarity. So molality. So this is 2.5 by 60 into 75 into 1000. So I need to calculate this. So let me calculate this. 10, 25 will go 3 times. 10, 10 cancels. So this is equal to 10 divided by 18. So 10 divided by 18, I can find out. This is 5 divided by 9. So 0.5, 545, 5. So yeah. So 0.56. In chemistry, you have to answer to 3 decimal places. 0.0. Always remember, it is 3 decimal places. Last year, there was a very unfortunate incident, not one actually, several unfortunate cases where an examiner reduced 1 mark from the top students because they did not mention 3 decimal places. I was very, very annoyed by the whole incident. The examiner, the practical examiner, reduced 1 mark for many of our top students because they did not answer to 3 decimal places. So let us get used to it. So the answer is 0.556 molal. Okay. So if this is clear, then I will see your how can solvent's SI unit be in grams? What if the solvent was a liquid? Even then I can have in grams. If it is a liquid, it can be in grams. also, and it can be in ml also. But there can't be no more than 2 significant digits. Why there can't be more than 2? Oh, you are looking at the question and saying in the question it is too significant. Oh, no, no, no. So she cut 1 mark for all the students. I have never heard that. Now just imagine the top guys, even if they had got, like, there are 2 students who have got 99 in chemistry. So I don't know what their practical marks is. I have to go and see. But just imagine if you got a 99 in chemistry and your practical marks were 29. Ajay Karthik, what are you trying to say? In second JEE exam question, it was asked for 2 decimal places, but we won't round off the decimal. Yeah. They asked you for, don't forget about the JEE exam. In the JEE exam, they'll tell you clearly. I'm just telling you because I was tempted to write 0.56. I should have written 0.556. Basically, in chemistry, remember, especially in your board, you have to answer to 3 decimal places. No, forget about all those significant figures and all. You keep that only for the entrance exam. Okay. Yeah. So, but are you understanding this concept? Are we getting it? If you're understanding this concept, I will move on. We will do maybe one more question and then we will say goodbye. Okay. So you lost 4 marks because of that. Sorry for that. Okay, so let's proceed. Let's do one tough question and then see if we can work out. Let me look at the book bag. There will be one question on benzene density. I like that question. Okay. So here is a question. Concentrated HNO3 is used in the laboratory works is 68% nitric acid by mass. Nitric acid by mass in water. Okay. Now the question is the density of the solution. The density of the solution is 1.504 grams per liter. What is its molarity and molality? What is its molarity and molality? Concentrated HNO3 is 68% nitric acid by mass in water. The density of the solution is 1.504 gram per liter. What is its molarity and molality? Molarity is number of moles of solute per liter of solution. Per liter of solution, whereas molality, I explained to you, number of moles of solute per 1000 grams of solvent. Okay, by 1000 grams of solvent. So just simply understand what it means. Break down the question, then it will be very easy. Concentrated HNO3 is 68% nitric acid by mass. That means if you have 100 grams of solution, in that 68 grams is nitric acid and 32 grams will be water. Okay, this is HNO3 and this is water. Now, further they are saying if you take 1 liter of the solution, so 1 liter is 1504 grams. So is 1504 grams. So if you take 1 liter of the solution, totally it is having 1504 grams. That means, can I say the amount of water is 32 into 15 and the amount of nitric acid is 68 into 15. In 1 liter of water, totally it will be 1504 grams. So from there I am saying it is 68 into 15 grams of HNO3 and 32 into 15 grams of water. Do you understand this? Yeah, do you understand this? Okay, so now it becomes very simple now because I need to understand what is the molarity. Molarity is number of moles per liter. So it will become 68 into 15 divided by molar mass of HNO3. So 16 into 3 is 48 plus 1 plus 14. So how much is that? 48 plus 1 is 49. 49, 59, 63. So it becomes 68 into 15 by 63. This is what molarity. Molarity is so many moles in 1 liter of solution. So this directly will give me the molarity. So the molarity to my experience will be little more than 15. So maybe it will be 16 molar. Then the next part I asked you, what is the molality? Now in so many grams of water, you have so many moles. Yeah, in so many grams of water, you have so many moles. Now in 1000 grams of water, how much will it be? So it will become 68 into 15 divided by 63 into 15 into 32 into 1000. This is one more thing that I am going to tell you, my dear friends, that in chemistry, if you take these numbers to the last step, lot of these numbers, they will just get cancelled and you may not really have to work out on them. Okay, so don't fiddle with this number, just try to get an answer from here. So 163.008. So when you multiply it, it will become 1080 divided by 32. Now you keep cancelling with the 2's. So this is divisible by 4, right? So 4 into 8 4 is 32. 4 2 is 8, 28, 70. Then again this will become 4. This will become 135. So 135 by 4. So 135 by 4. 4 into 3 is 12, 15. So almost 34 molal. If you ask me questions, I will help you. So that's mass is 1.504. That is 1.504. That is 1.504 per milliliter, grams per milliliter. Yeah, so it is 1.504 grams per milliliter. So we want to convert it into grams per liter. So liter is 1 milliliter is 1000. So into 1000. So 1504. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. If I have written grams per liter, I'm sorry. It should be grams per milliliter. Grams per ml. It can't be so many grams per liter because water itself is 1000 grams per liter. So when you add anything to this, it will become more than 1000 grams per liter. It is 1.504 grams per milliliter. I missed that. Yes, are we able to understand how I worked on this? Yes, others? So we have one unit which is molarity, which is number of moles of solute by per liter of solvent. Okay, then the second one is molality. This is number of moles of solute by per 1000 grams of solvent. So the number of moles of solute in 1000 grams of solvent. This is solvent, this is solution. Solution. Then you have normality. Number of equivalents of solute in 1 liter of solution. Okay, so if you understand these, some small questions. 49 grams of H2SO4 is completely dissolved in to form 1 liter of solution. 49 grams of H2SO4 is completely dissolved to form 1 liter of H2SO4 solution. What is its normality? What is its molarity? We will answer these two questions and we will stop for the day. We will continue again tomorrow. I am done with the chapter on magnetism. I am waiting for you to read, work out the assignments. I hope all of you worked out the questions with the book back. Normality is equal to 1, molarity is equal to 0.5. Sir, can you show the normality slide? I will. Sir, whatever NK sir has told. Yeah, please show the slides. I will show the slides. 1 and 0.5. Okay, good. Okay, good. Some of you have got it soon. Others have to do. So I wanted me to show you the normality slide. Here, normality. Normality is number of equivalents. Number of equivalents of solute. Number of equivalents. Equivalence means the weight of the solute which interacts with 1 mole of electrons. Weight of the solute which interacts with 1 mole of electrons. So for H2SO4 gives 2H plus. So 1 mole will give 2 moles of H plus, but we want only 1 mole. So 1 mole means molar weight by 2. Molar weight is 98. So 98 by 2 is 49. So in my case, I added 49. So because I added 49, normality is 1. Yeah, so is this understood? If you getting it, we will move ahead. Yeah, normality is 1, molarity is 0.5. 49 grams is 0.5. I will let you know what is the syllabus for the test. Okay, but I think whatever NK sir has told. Yeah, I will show you the slides from the first. I think we have done quite a bit, so we'll just. Fourth slide. Fifth slide. Sixth slide. Seventh slide. Eighth slide. Nine. Ten. 11. Yeah, solid state, the whole lesson is removed. Okay, 11, 12, 13. It is funny that when they put the deleted portion, they put solid state in that, but the whole lesson solid state itself is removed. 14, 15. Oh, this is all there in physics. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, so these are the slides. Okay. In Biot-Savart's law and Ampere's circuital law there for this week's test? No, no, no. Why is it always proved to us that solute should always be lesser than solvent? That's the definition of solute. What if both are equal? Yeah, then you can say either of them are the solute. Explain the last question. What was the last question? Oh, okay. So the last question was, I had asked for 49, I took 49 grams of H2SO4. So what is the molar mass of H2SO4? 2 plus 32 plus 64. So that is 98 grams. So 49 grams means 49 divided by 98. So that is 0.5 moles. So you have 0.5 moles in 1 liter. So the molarity is 0.5 m. Okay, but the n factor for H2SO4 is 2. So normality is equal to n factor into molarity. So that is 2 into 0.5. For acids, the n factor is the number of replaceable hydrogen atoms. So here it is 2. So when you supply, it becomes 1. So that is the thing. Okay. Physics portions, I think only moving charges. Don't worry about solid state. We will solve that problem. Okay, we will solve the problem of solid state.